Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back for another episode of Hearthstone. Now, even though this is the second episode in this recording session, all we have to do is cast 20 spells. And so, I'm just going to play as the Mage today and try and cast those spells and be done with it. I'm still a little sick, and so if I get these 20 spells played, then I'm just gonna go work on some other stuff because I'm behind. Having a cold. I guess I haven't had a cold in a very long time.
You asked for it.
Because it's just like a week of straight up not being able to do anything at all.
Is someone injured?
It really reminds me how I've done the wrong thing in the past when working for other people about when I was sick. And I did the wrong thing thinking it was the right thing, and that was going to work and showing up for work and really trying, and that is the wrong thing to do. And most people, I guess, figure that out or just don't care. One way or the other, and they just stay home and call in sick, and
job's done.
And I even heard of a trick where if you want to sound sick, you lay on your back and turn your head to the side as you're calling on the phone, then you'll sound congested. And heck, if that's what you have to do, if you're only slightly sick and you want to sound sicker to your boss, might as well. Because at the end of the day, if you are even slightly sick, and some ignorant boss says, well, I want you to come in anyways, you shouldn't, because you're just gonna make everybody else at work sick, and then productivity is gonna shoot down even lower. And I've said this before, it's just like, smart bosses say, if you feel sick, don't come in. In fact, smart bosses say, if you don't want to come in, just don't come in. If you're an hourly employee, it doesn't matter. The only time that it would matter is if you were on a salary contract and you weren't coming in enough to get the job done. And if there's not enough people to get the job done and they really need you there, well, that's really your boss's fault for not hiring enough people. And that's what most bosses make their major mistakes, is they just don't have enough employees. How many stores have you walked into and there are checkout lines that aren't there? How many stores have you walked into and there's like one person covering a large store when it should be 3, 4, 5 of people?
Master of magics. Vaporization commencing.
But so you see it all over the place. They understaff. How many restaurants have you been to where it takes forever to get seated? It takes forever for a waiter to assist you, to wait on you. Only in like countries, I bet in China, where there's just a ridiculously large amount of people and also a ridiculously low amount of money you have to actually pay those people, do you start seeing service where there's 5 people waiting on you at once. Or if you're going to a very fancy restaurant and there's the sommelier, if that's how it's pronounced, serving your wine and recommending you the the waitress that seats you, the waiter that brings you the amuse bouche, and then the next waiter that brings the entries. And oh, by the way, the waiter that brings the entries has a waiter of his own because they're carrying so much food. And then you have your patisserie coming out and telling you about the desserts. So you've seen 5 different people. Yes, at very fancy restaurants you can have experiences like that, but at McDonald's, McDonald's doesn't want anybody working there. If McDonald's could replace everything with a robot, they would, if it was cost feasible. It's really the reason why you shouldn't shop at a place like McDonald's. If you have choices, go to the store that has the most number of employees walking around. Yeah, he did a lot of work to get his health up, and then my owl just turned him down. That's why often you want to stick to small businesses, local businesses, is because at the very least you know they're not as efficient about understaffing their employees. They haven't figured out all the tricks that a large corporate franchise has. Look at like the hot and ready pizza plateful. What are they? Little Caesars? I mean, every Little Caesars maybe it's just my area, but every Little Caesars I walk to, 2 or 3 people max for this place, and they're selling quite a lot of pizza. And how are they doing it? Well, I don't know if they're making any of the dough fresh. I doubt it. I bet it's all being coming frozen. So I'm not even sure if the whole assembled pizzas aren't coming in frozen. Probably not, but it might be. But they've efficiently made it far too efficient, and for my goals, I don't want them to be efficient. I want them to be super inefficient, so that more people get a slice of the pie. And efficiency just really equates to the CEO or the shareholders. The rich people get more of the pie. And I don't want that kind of efficiency. I want inefficiency where a little bit of a penny here goes to this guy, a penny here goes to this guy, a penny here goes to this guy. That is really shown in like car parts. In what the car industry is trying to do to car parts. They're trying to eliminate the number of parts in a car, which there are frankly thousands and thousands of parts in most cars for a little reason, but just to run up the price, I would assume. But they don't want to share that money. It's kind of strange, actually. Strange situation that probably doesn't equal as well as I was about to say it does. But the major car manufacturers don't want any one parts company to be too big, so they buy from like dozens and dozens of manufacturers the same parts, because they want to be the monopoly. But on the other hand, they want to add efficiency by eliminating the need for the parts altogether,
Ready for this?
so they can
Job's done.
can instead just charge the same price and not pay any part company at all. Really, if they can make a car where they had to order no
Is
parts
someone
at all, they
injured?
would. But they can't. The systems are too complicated. Cars are too complicated. Cars are stupid in many ways, but being too complicated is one of them.
Someone call
Yeah.
for the doctor.
I recently had the electric window break on my car, and it is rather irritating now. Wow. Turn that one around. Rather irritating now because I have to just have it taped up because it falls down. And I remember when cars just had a handle and you just turn the handle to lower the window. And frankly, I think we probably could have just left it like that. Just simplify it. If you're a person sitting next to a window and you want it down, you roll down the window. That's pretty much all you have to do. You don't have to have it electric. Some things, a lot of things are safety, sure. There's tons of safety things, and there was a need for a car radio in the old days of having, well, not even a need, but a want for a car radio in the old days. That was good and would play music, but nowadays, with people's cell phones, it's nice if the radio Bluetooths to the cell phone, but that's all it really needs to do, if it does even that. Because I could just turn on my cell phone and have it play music without being connected to a car radio, which, by the way, mine doesn't have Bluetooth, so it doesn't synchronize. It doesn't need to do call hands-free stuff because I'm sure all of that's gonna be made illegal for distracted driving eventually anyways. Cars have gotten more and more electric, more and more computerized, and while that is a good thing, they've also made it harder and harder to fix and maintain a vehicle yourself. I think, having no knowledge whatsoever of cars, I think I probably could have fixed and maintained a car from 50 years ago. I am certain I can't now. I have no idea what I would be doing. Fortunately, there's tons of stuff that will be fixed. Once we get to, if none of these guys are creatures and he can't summon anything, I may have won this. All I gotta do is kill this guy.
Someone call for the doctor.
I've lost.
Job's done.
If I was able to kill this guy, I would have won. But yeah, once we get to electric cars, when you start looking at the like Google automated car, that thing has basically nothing in it. So you stop really having, when you have a car being driven by a robot, I bet your brake pads last forever because people slam on the brakes a lot more than a computer would. Uh, there's no fuel when it's running off a battery. You have no need for gas tanks, gaskets, washers, fuel injector systems out.
Let the hunt begin.
Everything to do with emissions is thrown out the window, so you don't need mufflers, you don't need filters, you don't need computerized testing equipment for all of that. There's just this long list of things that have been necessary when you're using gasoline that when you stop using gasoline you don't need. All you need in an electric car is a battery and a motor and a computer to control them. And some four wheels. Um, if you put each wheel on its own separate motor, that is fine. Then you would have four direct drive wheels. That works as long as the computer can calculate anti-slip and stuff like that. You can have auto sensing pressure in the tires, which they put in fancier cars. You could probably put that in a very cheap car since you're saving everything else, and that'll help. Now, if you don't only want to have one motor, because the motor may have to be big, you would still have to have the whole axle system. And if you're going to have the axle system, you might still even have a gearbox. One of the things I thought that will be a cool thing, so if somebody wants to go patent this and make $1 million, you owe me a cut. But somebody needs to invent a device that you could put in like Google cars and automated cars where a person can sit there and just put their foot on a clutch and shift gears, because there are a lot of manual drivers that are going to still want to have that sensation. They're going to feel very weird for a while sitting in a car and not putting their foot on the clutch and shifting gears back and forth. And maybe you somehow send some signals so that the car simulates some of that, but more than likely you wouldn't. More than likely it'd be like a toy thing that does nothing but just makes them feel better. And make a game out of it. Maybe it's like you shifted this much slower than the computer did, and just sit there and beat it into their heads. It's like there is no way you would ever be faster than the computer.
Job done.
But yeah, I think that would be a product that actually sells. It's just fake shifting. And then you could of course follow that up with the fake steering wheel, which I'm sure people are gonna want. I'm sure there are people that in Google cars that are driving themselves, they're gonna want to have a fake steering wheel so they can just sit there and pretend like they're driving and look like they're driving, just to feel like one of the crowd as the transition goes. And then make it so it can go on the other side. All the European people who move to America can feel just like home.
Job's done.
I don't know if this will be the last generation that gets taught how to drive. I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt that this generation, somebody born today or tomorrow, is going to never learn how to drive. It's unlikely. There's too many cars, and there's too many cars, and it's going to take too long for those cars to get. What I assume is what will happen is they will get exported to the more developing, less developed countries. So poor countries that couldn't get don't have the same road systems that America does. Because if there's one thing good you can say about America is we have a lot of roads, and they're pretty well mapped out, and they're usually acceptable in quality. So, like, a lot of countries in Africa, probably all dirt roads, probably don't have, aren't gonna have the money for an automated driving car. Aren't gonna have the electrical grid. Lots of countries don't even have the electrical grid where people could charge their cars if they had an electric car. So until we fix that problem, there'll be, and so I imagine it will take several decades to eventually completely phase out the need for people to learn to drive. The government's involved, they will take their sweet time and say everybody needs to know how to drive anyways. Lots of countries, you don't need a driver's license. Even parts of the United States, if you are in New York City, Manhattan proper, you don't really need a driver's license. The driving is, trying to drive in Manhattan is close to impossible and not worth it. If you live in San Francisco, there's a good chance you don't need to learn how to drive. So there's already a couple cities in the United States where you can grow up and not need to drive. So it'll eventually happen. It'll eventually. I don't even know if in all schools you get driver's eds. A lot of schools, when I took driver's ed in high school, it seemed like it was the last class they were ever going to teach. I think that I just got in under the wire, and then I don't know if my little brother, who went to the same high school, which isn't that strange because we didn't move or anything. Although we probably didn't move houses, we just didn't move areas. We had a habitual problem of moving or getting moved. The real problem was we had rented like 2 or 3 houses, and every 5 or 6 years the person that was renting it would sell the house without giving us much of any warning and just be like, you've got to get out. I sold the house, and that is a danger that everybody should be aware. If you're renting a house, not renting an apartment, although apartment people will do this too, they will try and get better tenants than you and charge more, and so they'll try to get rid of you if they've got somebody lined up already. So it's very nefarious. But if you're renting a house in particular, that person is probably trying to sell that house, and so it might be on the market. You might want to, if you're renting a house, go look on Zillow.com and see if your house is for sale. The place you're living in is for sale, because it might be, and that's what happened to us twice. Is we rented one house, and then we get kicked out. We rented another house, and we got kicked out with very little preparation. And then we finally bought a house, but unfortunately we bought a bad house, which happens. It happens too often. if you want to buy a good house, buy a new house. It does. I hate to generalize like this, and this is just a generalization, but don't buy old houses. Building code is always laxer, and there's always gonna be somebody that went in there and did something crazy with remodeling it.
To my side.
Either they did something crazy to remodel it, or it's gonna look exactly like it did when it was built in the 50s or 60s, and it's gonna be super old and super ugly. So buy a new house, or if you really have the money, you have it built for you, but buy something that's only like at most 5 years old, one previous owner. If it has any problems, it's not going to be anywhere as bad as an old house. Old houses are going to have the old style electrical, old style plumbing, old style insulation, old style everything, floor layout. The other thing is, if you want space, be prepared to get a second floor. Almost all new houses are going, if you want or need a lot of space, are going to get that space by going either up or down. So you're either going to have a basement or a second floor. But the third, probably most important thing, is don't have a lot of stuff. Ever in your life. Having a lot of stuff becomes just a burden on you, really. If you have too much furniture, if you have too much junk,
Job's done.
you're going to have to buy a very large house, larger than what most houses are. So it's going to throw out 90% of all viable houses when you start shopping, just because you have too much junk. You're going to have a huge garage to hold half of your stuff. It's just a nightmare. You want to live sparse, every room should be decorated very sparsely. Very few things in it. It should be a nice big open area. If you've got more than 6 chairs to your name, you probably have made a mistake somewhere. Like 6 fancy dining room chairs is what I'm talking about. If you have more than 1 sofa, why? If you can count, if you have more than 1 desk, why do you even need 1 desk? Now, I say all of that because I do not follow that. I have way too much stuff, and it is a nightmare trying to keep it all organized or try to even be slightly organized. It is a nightmare of just falling over stuff, always being cramped, and totally having to buy a house that has tons of other problems just because it was the only house that was big enough.
I am master of magics. Mind.
Job's done.
Yeah. You really want to adopt the mentality of, at the end of your life, you want a big fat bank account, not a house full of stuff. Because when you do pass, and you will die, you don't want your kids to then be fighting over all your items or trying to do estate sales in which they're only going to get a tiny percentage of whatever you paid for those items. When they start selling your furniture and your artwork and your everything, every single thing you bought and didn't consume.
The gates are open.
Estate sales is just gonna, it's a garage sale is what an estate sale is. It's just a garage sale. You're gonna be selling $30 articles of clothing for $1. And so, if you live a moderate lifestyle, don't buy that stuff if you don't really need it, and just have a big fat bank account. Well, A, you're secured to live as long as you do live. You are secured to pay for any unexpected medical bills. You're secured against any other expenses. But then, when you do pass, all that happens with the money that's left over is it just gets split, although there might be some inheritance tax issues there, but it's not going to be anywhere as bad as having estate sales and selling all your items. It's just better that people sit on cash. Arguably, maybe you don't want to keep it all in the banks. Banks have been proving themselves to be less and less trustworthy. Maybe you just actually want actual dollar bills stuffed in a safe somewhere. That would be probably a little bit better, because if you had a lot of money stuffed in a safe somewhere, it would be hard.
Don't blink.
It would be left up to your inheritors whether they wanted to claim that as income or put it under the table. And maybe they should just put it under the table. I mean, but if you are going to put cash in a safe in your house, you need to get a good safe. You need to put it in a corner of a closet. You need to bolt it down to the floor and the wall. They are designed to be that way. You need to hide it under a pile of clothes and try and hide it as much as possible. You need to be pretty careful with it. You don't want to encourage or help people rob you. You know, just steal your safe. Worst mistake people could do is put money in a safe, and then the safe is just sitting in a closet not being bolted down, because even if it's heavy to you, it doesn't mean that two strong guys who move stuff out of other people's homes for a living because they're thieves aren't going to be able to steal it. And just lift out the safe, they'll take it back to their place, and they'll get a welding torch and weld through it. I think I wanted to be at 245, but I'm at 225. I also don't remember how many games we've done, but this feels like a good time to end it anyways. That's it for this recording session. As always, I ask that you like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. Also, go check out some other videos. Help me out. I need more views. Click on ads too. That probably would help me. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at RydoOfall. RYDOOFALL. Have a good evening.